Hello and welcome everyone to the Celestial Medium Podcast. This is a podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern awakening. I am your host, Niyah. I am a spiritual teacher, a psychic medium, and an eternal student of the mysteries. Thank you for joining us. We are doing this by popular demand. I have been doing YouTube videos for quite some time now. And between my spirit guides and my followers, people often say, well, who are you? And so, in an effort to answer that question, I've decided to come on here and do a video podcast once a week where I will anticipate having visitors, guests, and just talking through some of the things that I've been posting. So, welcome. I'm excited and thank you all for joining me. Just know that this is a space for those who feel the call. The pull towards something deeper, something older, and more sacred than what we've been told. Here, we explore the esoteric, the mystical, and the eternal truths that have guided seekers across millennium. So, this podcast was born from a vision, a sense that there is a golden thread running through all spiritual traditions. It whispers through Egyptian times, Hermetic scrolls, the Bible, Rosicrucian manifestos, and the like. It is still whispered within silent meditation as well. And so this thread connects not just the teachings, but souls. Those of us awakening now are not the first, and we will not be the last. We are remembering. So let's talk about what this hidden thread is. So, what's the hidden thread? It's not a single idea or doctrine, it's a vibration, a current of divine remembrance that flows through the ancient mystery schools and into the spiritual practices of today. We see it in Egyptology, where the ancient Egyptians encoded cosmic knowledge in their art, symbols, and sacred literature and architecture. To them, life wasn't a random accident. It was part of a grand divine order. We see it in Hermeticism, rooted in the teachings of Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus, the mystical figures who merged through the wisdom of Egypt with the philosophical depth of Greece. The words echo the principle of correspondence. If you've watched my videos, you've heard me say this a million times. As above, so below. As within, so without. It's a universal law of unity. What we see above is mirrored below, the microcosm and the macrocosm. We also see this thread in sacred geometry, the language of the universe itself, from the spiral of the golden ratio to the flower of life etched in ancient temples. These patterns reveal the unseen structure of existence. Geometry was never just math. It has always been a portal to divine knowledge. We find it in Rosicrucianism, the secretive and symbolic movement that emerged in Europe out of Egypt, cloaked in mystery and devoted to personal transformation, divine knowledge, and the upliftment of humanity. I myself am a practicing Rosicrucian. Through these traditions appear different on the surface, they all share key truths. Three of them in particular. One, we're eternal souls on a journey of remembrance. Two, the knowledge of the self is the path to the divine truth. And three, that the wisdom is not random. Wisdom's not random. The universe is not random. It's sacred, it's alive, and it's deeply intelligent, and it speaks to us through nature. And so these are topics that we're going to explore throughout this podcast. So now let's ask the question, why is all of this happening now? What is this spiritual rebirth? Well, we've seen this over and over again in time, right? We saw it in Egypt. We saw it in Greece. This is just our time. This is the golden age of our time. This is where wisdom comes from the divine. This is where we unite science and spirituality. I myself am a child of both science and spirituality. I consider myself a baby astronomer, right? I've taken astronomy in college. I'm a huge fan of astronomy. I watch space weather more than I watch the weather on this planet. And the reason for that is because I realize that what's happening out there reverberates down here. But why are many of us being drawn to meditation, sacred text, energy healing, and the like? Again, it is a time of collective quickening, a spiritual renaissance of our age. More and more people are waking up to energy, intuition, synchronicity, and feeling called to something higher because we're remembering that ancient wisdom isn't old, it's eternal, and it's ready to be brought to life again in a new way by a new generation of spiritual beings. This is what many of us call ascension. Now, ascension is not an escape from Earth, okay? It's a rising into higher states of being, of consciousness, of clarity while incarnated on Earth. I think a lot of people get it wrong. They think we live on Earth, then we die, and while we're gone, we learn, and then we come back here to institute those learnings. But that's backwards. We're brought here to learn. When we die in between incarnations, what we're doing is reviewing those learnings that we learned in incarnation. So the reality of it is being incarnated here is the time with which you're supposed to enlighten spiritually, not when you die. Because when you enlighten here on earth spiritually while you're incarnated, guess what? You start breaking the cycle of incarnation. Incarnation is just a tool for learning. So that begs the question, what happens once you've learned? What happens when you've hit that peak, when you've become enlightened? What happens is you break the cycle. You don't come back here to this earth to learn because you've learned everything you can from this earth. So then what happens? You go on. You go on spiritually to other places. You become Thoth. You travel the galaxy. You go where you want to go because once you've broken that cycle, that is true freedom, people. That is true enlightenment. It is the breaking of the cycle. We often talk about hell and heaven, right? My theory, and the theory of many esoteric beings, is that we are in hell. Hell's not brimstone and fire. Hell is stuck in a karmic cycle that you can't get out of. That's hell. Hell is having to get up and go to work every day, right? Hell is having to be reborn and forgot all of the lives and the wisdom you earned and you've learned in the previous lives. That's hell. It's not brimstone and fire and devils. It's earth. It's being stuck in a third density of earth. It's not just earth. It's where we are. The whole purpose of being here is to get out of the cycle. That is when you get out of hell. That is when you become a real, true spiritual being. Okay. And so for me, this all started when I was a child, my journey. And I've been reluctant to share my journey. And the reason for that is because I want people to realize that my journey won't be your journey. My journey is not Brahma's journey. My journey isn't Buddha's journey. It's not Jesus's journey. It's Niyah's journey. You all are going to have your own journey. And so my reluctance comes from sharing my journey and you thinking your journey should be like mine. It's not, but I'll share my journey. At a young age, I saw spirits. I saw them in high school, saw them when I was a kid. My earliest memory of seeing a spirit or an angelic being is when I was 2 years old. I was one of these kids who got fevers. No one could understand why. There was never another illness stuck to the fevers. I would just get fevers. And back then, the doctor would say, put her in a cold tub. We don't know. There's no other symptoms. And I remember particularly when I was 1 or 2 years old, being in a tub, screaming, just screaming because it was freezing and I was on fire. And it was just feeling this like, what is happening to me? And I remember my mom being in this little bitty bathroom and my grandfather being in there and my doctor, who was a local doctor who they called over to help. All of these people in this bathroom trying to get this 104 fever to drop. Out of the corner of my eye, there's a woman who was glowing. She had really, really long hair. I couldn't tell if she was black, white, you're young, you don't know. But now looking back and remembering this moment, I still can't tell you what she was. I just knew she was a woman and she was beautiful and she was blue and she was an angel. She had wings. And I saw her literally form behind my grandfather in this bathroom in the corner. And all of a sudden, I stopped screaming. It was just like calm, just this sense of calm came over me. And I remember they thought everybody in the room was like, okay, she shut up. What's happening? And the fever just started going down. And then they pulled me out of the bathtub. And that was my earliest memory of an energetic being. But from that moment, there was never a doubt in my mind that there was more, that there was more than what I see, even as a child. Fast forward as an older kid, maybe adolescence, I was the kid that would sit outside and stare at the stars for hours. My friends would play and I would be playing with them, but it would never elude me to look up. I was always looking up. And then I would come in the house and draw the stars. Um, I would just draw suns and stars, suns and stars. And so, what does that mean for me? You'll hear me say terms as I do these podcasts like wanderers and different beings, because I'm going to give you everything that I have learned in my own journey. I believe that I am of this earth. I don't believe I was one of those beings that came here from another planet or came here from another star system. I believe that I was born of the earth. I am a child of the earth and a child of the sun. That's what I believe. Sevens have been my number all of my life. My birthday is filled with sevens. My life has been filled with sevens. I've seen synchronicity since I was a child. I was born at 7:14 in the sevens. Um, and I've always noticed even as a child, when I would be calling and roll, it would be 7 or 17 or 21. The number has literally followed me. And I think these numbers pop up in everyone's lives. I think I was just a nosy enough kid to see it, right? I don't believe that I'm special. I don't believe that I'm different. I think I'm just like everybody else. I just see differently. So fast forward, being a kid, I would just know things. I remember the week that my grandmother passed away. I knew something was wrong. I knew something was going to happen. I was drawing like these really, really dark pictures. Everyone was asking me, why are you drawing dark pictures during Christmas? This makes no sense. When I was in class, I remember fifth grade, they asked us to make a wreath. And I was the only kid who brought home a black wreath. And everyone was like, this is weird. Why are you doing this? And then on Christmas Eve, my grandmother passed away on the morning of Christmas Eve. Fast forward high school. I remember a time me and one of my best friends, who's still one of my best friends, went up to my high school to just hang out on a weekend. Don't ask me why. And we were walking past a classroom and I looked, my classroom was like a campus style. And so you could see, in the classrooms if you walked on campus. And I told my best friend, there's a man there. And she said, no, there isn't. And I was like, there's totally a man standing there waving, smiling. And she's like, no, there isn't. So I just brushed it off, kept walking. On the way back, we could look over at the classroom. All the doors are open and all the drawers and all the cabinets. And my best friend looked at me, screamed, and we took off running. Fast forward another time in high school, I was at home by myself and I saw a little boy run past, just like run past me. It was really weird. I would see this little boy who's probably 7 years old for the next 2 or 3 years, on and off, random circumstances, run in and giggle. A ball would come in the room. Not until I was probably 40 something years old was I doing a meditation, and this boy came in and said to me, you don't remember me, but I was basically your childhood imaginary friend. My name's Billy. And then it hit. The memory came flooding in of playing with this little boy when I was such a small child that I didn't even remember him being around. So through a series of these events over my life, my spirituality transformed. I was born in a house where my grandmother was Baptist, my grandfather was Catholic, my mother was at the time a practicing Buddhist. And so early on in my life, and my best friend was Jewish. I was really thrown into a sea of spirituality before I even knew it, before I could even realize it. Not till I look back on my life do I see the transition that God and my higher self put me through to get to this place where I am a very well-rounded spiritual person. You'll see my videos. I am a huge fan of different religions. Love Hinduism, a child of Shiva, love Ganesha, big fan of Egyptian gods. All of the Egyptian gods I work with. I work with archangels, all beings of love and light, because I believe in one thing. We are all one. And I've heard this from every angel I've dealt with, every being I've dealt with. We are really all one being, all connected, regardless of race, religion, religious dogma. We're all connected. And so I'm saying all of this to give you kind of a taste of what you're going to get from my podcast. So, what's to come? Well, in some upcoming episodes, we're going to journey into the depths of Egypt, the symbolism of the Ankh, the Eye of Horus. We're going to study the Emerald Tablets and the laws of Hermeticism. We'll talk about Rosicrucianism. We'll talk about Hinduism, what happens after we die, and we'll talk about what I've experienced as a psychic medium. So, I didn't call myself a medium until about 2 years ago. Now, mind you, all this time I've been communing with spirits. But something happened about 2 years ago. I was home downstairs in the kitchen and I was looking out a window and I saw a spirit. And after I had shut it off in high school, because I was kind of creeped out by the events that I told you about when I was in high school, I kind of shut it off, I think. So a couple years ago, I was looking at my window and I clearly saw a spirit. It was a man. He was smiling. He was dressed as a pastor, wearing a top hat, dressed sharp. And he was waving at me. First thing I did was I called my daughter and I was like, okay, I think there's a spirit outside. I don't know what's happening. And so she's like, go to another window. So I go to another window. He's still waving. I run upstairs and another window. He's moved now, but he's still waving. And at this point, I'm like, okay. So I was like, I don't know what to do. So I just said, okay, I'm going to pray on this and try to figure out what I'm going to do after I shut the blinds. About 8 days later, I see the funeral procession pull up in front of my neighbor's house. Guy gets out of the car with a t-shirt on, and it's clearly the man that I saw outside of my window. And that's when I said, okay, God, let's just do this. If this is going to continue on, I'm just going to embrace it. And I just started on a spiritual journey of wisdom, seeking, reading, everything I could get my hands on mediumship classes on how to perfect what I had already been given. How do I commune? How do I ask questions to these spirits? How do I engage them instead of just being a passerby? And so I practice with some of the most best mediums that I know. Suzanne Giesman, Shakti Durga, many different, Amy Utzman, read every book I could get my hands on to perfect this craft. Worked with deities, worked with angels, and here I am. So I probably would say up to date, I have done about 500 readings. Yeah, I think I'm about 500 in. I do different types of readings. I do psychic readings where we talk about your path, what you want, what I see in different decision points, and just give you guidance on your spiritual path. Sometimes I do one-on-one classes with people who are wannabe mediums. I don't do group classes, but I like one-on-one classes because I like to work with you one-on-one, whether you want to be a professional medium or whether you just want to learn how to contact your own loved ones. If you've ever had a reading with me or taking a class with me, you will hear me say, anyone can do this work. It's not just me. Any one of you, any one of you can do this. You will always hear me say this. I'm not special. Okay. I'm sharing these gifts with you, but I am here to help you awaken your own gifts because the future is that each one of us will do this work for ourselves, and each one of us will commune with spirits. It is now the time for us to get back to being connected as we were back in Egypt, as we were in ancient. That is where we are now. So I invite you to listen deeply, to reflect, to question, and most importantly, to turn inward. Because the truth isn't hidden in a temple or in text or in any of the words I say, it's in you. And so this will be a path of awakening for each and every one of you. You are the thread, you are the key. And as always, as Nicholas Tesla once said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, you must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that is what we will explore in this podcast. So thank you for joining me on this very first step into the mysteries. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps others and help others find this thread too. You can find us on YouTube, and you can also find us on Spotify, where we will be hosting our podcast. So until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep following the golden thread within. Thank you and namaste.